Joining us right now, Carol Johnson. She's the communications officer for the National Mall and Memorial Parks for the National Park Service. And we wanted to talk to her about this last weekend's crowd control down at the Cherry Blossom Festival. Carol Johnson, thanks for joining us this morning.
My pleasure.
So we want to talk about the trash in a minute because that got a lot of the headlines yesterday. But first, let's talk about the crowds. Were they bigger than the Park Service expected? Because that's the one thing I kept hearing from everyone when I was down there. Everyone was saying, wow, we had no idea this many people were going to show up.
Well, I think what happened is ordinarily over the course of 2 weeks during the Cherry Blossom Festival, we get a little over 1 million people visiting. And I think there was a confluence of events with the beautiful weather, peak bloom, Cherry Blossom Parade, the end of the Cherry Blossom Festival, and from what I understand, a street festival, and everybody decided to come on one weekend rather than over the 2 weeks.
I see. And I was one of the people, and it was lovely as always, but it was frustrating for me just in terms of getting around because there's a real lack of signage down there, even temporary signage, just sort of let people know, for instance, which metro station is going to be exit only or entrance only, and, where pedestrians can walk and where pedestrians are prohibited from walking because of the little fences, the temporary fences that got put up. Is there any thought given to that to sort of help the people movement a little bit better so that people can see where they can go and how they can move about?
Well, after the Cherry Blossom Festival is over, we always have what's called an after action and look at just those kinds of things so that the next time around we do a better job. We certainly try to make sure that there's good signage and that we make sure that people are there. But with these kind of crowds, clearly, we needed to do a little bit more, and we're going to be looking at things that we can do next year to make it better.
All right, so I understand that you may have caught a little off guard by the fact that the crowds, everybody seemed to show up at one time. The crowds were much larger than you had anticipated. It was, in a way, sort of the opposite of a perfect storm. It was perfect weather on a beautiful day, and the locals crashed into D.C. on top of the tourists, and it just got out of control. But you have people assigned to pick up the trash, correct?
Yes, we do.
Well, but
and we actually had extra staff on who were scheduled.
Then why was there such a problem with the trash this time? Then?
Well, part of the problem was if you were down there, there was such gridlock that, and I'm not talking vehicle gridlock, I'm talking pedestrian gridlock. We couldn't even get our trash trucks through. And if you saw, we had, I think, 5 cubic yard containers that were completely full. So it's not as if the trash wasn't being picked up. There was just so much of it. And just getting in to pick it up was a problem. We even after, we saw that we needed additional staff, we called them in and people even had trouble getting into town.
All right, so this was just an exceptional circumstance is what you're saying.
Yes, it really was. I mean, this is the kind of thing that we excel at. We do, 4th of July, we do Cherry Blossom Festival every year, and this is the first time I've ever seen it this way. One of the things that's interesting is that I talked to our maintenance people yesterday, and 4th of July is our biggest trash day.
Right.
And this was equal to last 4th of July when we picked up between 27 and 30 tons of trash.
Wow. Okay, so you're going to have this after-action meeting, and I think that's a great idea. What do you think are going to be the major topics of discussion as you sit down and discuss how to make it better next time?
Oh, I think some of the things that you brought up is, all right, what can we do? What are the contingency plans we have if we need to bring in extra staff? How are we going to manage if we can't get through the crowds? Do we need to have, trash corrals somewhere? Those kinds of things. We'll be talking about whether or not we have adequate bathrooms. We'll be talking about signage, safety. One of the big things that I noticed when I was down there is that nobody was using crosswalks. And it was, I think, pretty dangerous, and we need to find a way to better enforce that.
Our guest is Carol Johnson. She's a communications officer for the National Park Service, specifically for the National Mall and Memorial Parks. And Ms. Johnson, I'm just curious, what are the things that a lot of people were saying? As you can well imagine, while people are standing and not able to budge, they make a lot of comments, right?
Yeah.
As you can well imagine.
Most of most people are pretty happy to be there.
Well, I think they were happy.
They liked the blossoms and so forth. And sure, we did hear about the trash.
Absolutely,
no doubt about that.
And I think what happened here is they were finally thrilled that there wasn't snow on a weekend, and that's why all the locals came out. No. And then listen, they were in good cheer. But one of the things that people were saying was, how is it that like Disney figures out how to do this? They get hundreds of thousands down there at Disney World. They get they never have trash piling up. They always have people moving. Setting Disney aside, do you ever bring in private consultants, people who are experts at the traffic flow and getting crowd management and things like that, or is this always something that internally the National Park Service manages?
Well, as long as I've been there, we do manage it internally. As I say, I think we're going to be looking at this and trying to say we have brought in private people to do traffic studies and so forth. So it's not outside the realm of possibility. And one of the things you have to keep in mind, we are a government entity, and we have the staffing that we have.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult to keep things going. I mean, our ground maintenance staff is about 50, and that includes planting the tulips, cutting the grass, cleaning up the trash. And when you have an event like the cherry blossom, it is just overwhelming. And that's not to say that we're not going to do better. We are going to look at this and see what ways we can make it better. But under the circumstances, I think most of the public understood that we were moving as fast as we possibly could.
Carol Johnson, thanks so much for joining us today. Communications Officer for the National Mall Memorial Parks there for the National Park Service.
Yeah,